Welcome back, everyone, to the Gaming on a Brain podcast. This is episode number 13. I'm Mark.
I'm Glenn.
This is Glenn.
As always.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about Fighting Force, the game that came out originally on the PlayStation, N64, almost came out on a Saturn but didn't quite make it, and it also came out on the Windows PC as well at the time. Yeah. It was a fairly well-received game, but we'll get into that shortly. Before we do get into that, just want to say thank you for watching, for listening as always. Please share amongst your friends so we can try and get recognition for the channel a bit higher. We'd like to keep doing this and keep bringing you content every week or every other week or whenever we can. Before we get into the main segment, I just want to share a bit of news with you guys, and that is all around the release of the Quest 3, which came out this week. Right now it's the 14th of October 2023. So this week, the Quest 3 released to the general public. If you're not aware of what the Quest is, it's the standalone VR device released by Meta, who originally was Oculus. So the Quest 3, successor obviously to the Quest 2, released for $479.99, I believe it was, for the 128GB version, or a massive 620 quid for the 512GB version. The reason I say massive is because the Quest 2 released, I think it was around about £350 or something like that. So the prices went up significantly really for this generation, but for what you're getting extra, it's kind of worth it. Now, if you've never played on a Quest system before, I recommend you do. If you know anyone who's got one, give it a try. VR is a great thing. I'm sure it's going to be bigger and bigger as future goes on, you know.
Yeah, I've enjoyed a bit of VR myself, but it's been a while.
Beat Saber.
Something I definitely did enjoy for a few, yeah.
There's a few really good games there, and there's some mainline games as well, like Resident Evil 4 and things like that you can play as well in VR, and it's mind-blowing when you play through a game in VR. Resident Evil 7, not on Quest, but on the PSVR, for example. But couple of things. Just if you are thinking about buying a Quest for one of your children or anything, or yourself for Christmas perhaps, I would completely recommend going with the new Quest. The reason being, at some point they will make Quest 3 exclusive games, which you won't be able to play on the Quest 1 or Quest 2, unless you sideload perhaps, but that's a different conversation for another day. A couple of the things that are improved. So again, the resolution's improved over the Quest 2, so it looks better. It now has colour pass-through instead of the monochrome pass-through that was on the Quest 2. A lot of these things won't mean anything to you unless you've had a Quest 2 or you've used one. There's a new Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 processor in there, which means the graphics and everything are a lot better. It runs a bit faster. Some of the older games, well, probably all of the games will see benefits from this new processor and new resolution as well. The controllers themselves have improved in the sense that what was originally the tracking ring around the top of the controllers has now been removed, so you're no longer clashing tracking rings together when you're trying to bring your hands close together. They're now actually on the faceplate of the controller itself. The speakers in the head strap are now better as well, so they do sound more dynamic, much better than the old ones. There's new pancake lenses which replace the Fresnel lenses that were in the Quest 2. They look much better and actually offer a slightly wider field of view as well. There's no exclusive Quest 3 games at the time of speaking, but we know there will be, like I mentioned earlier. But there is a couple of games already out that are going to receive Quest 3 updates, which will improve the graphics significantly and everything. One negative thing to say about it, just like when the Quest 2 released and the Quest 1, the head strap is pretty rubbish that you get out the box. Right now, there isn't any aftermarket ones available, but there is mention of some coming very soon. So if you are going to buy one, considering, like the £479 or £620 just for the Quest itself, you'll also have to factor in probably about £40-50 for a good headset as well if you want to make it comfortable to use. So just keep that in mind when you could probably pick up a Quest 2 for like 300 quid second hand or 200 quid second hand even, But yeah, look, it would make a fantastic Christmas present. So if you are in the hunt for one, keep an eye out. There could be some offers in the run up to Christmas, but no, it would be a lovely present for Christmas Day, I think, for one of your children, ideally over the age of 12 to open, But that's enough banging on from me, Glenn. I know everything I just said went over your head. Let's get into it. We'll see you in about 40 seconds after the infamous music of the Gaming on the Brain podcast.
I'm sure you'll enjoy.
See you soon, people. Bye now.
Bye now.
You've got Gaming on the Brain.
Welcome back, everyone. So, Glenn, Fighting Force, PlayStation in particular anyway. So we've just had a playthrough tonight just to refresh ourselves on that game. And I remember, there's probably a lot of people out there going to hate us for what I'm about to say next. But I remember back in, I think it was about 90, it probably was about 97, I think this game had just came out.
Yeah, it was 97, wasn't it, released for this?
Yeah. So, if I remember rightly, if I'm getting this the right way, Final Fantasy VII released just before this.
I believe it would have, yeah. I mean, obviously that would have, destroyed anything else at the time.
If I've got it wrong, then the story still applies for another game. But what I remember doing, my dad, do you remember that toy and video computer shop right at the top of the town, next to I think it was along where Isles and that is, and that Bananas place and stuff like that.
I do. Yeah, I think I do remember that.
The Rabbit or whatever it's called.
Aye.
So there was a little shop there that used to be run by like an oldish lady, and they had like quite a few PlayStation games and that in. And I remember I was in town with my dad one day, and
not talking about Markcliffe, are you? That's not Markcliffe.
It might have been, yeah. And I bought Final Fantasy VII because I mean it looked absolutely amazing. It was getting fantastic reviews. I'll be honest, I'd never really played an RPG up until that point because it's not something I knew I would like or
not
if I'd liked.
For me, usually.
Sorry, got a cold. And anyway, I picked up Final Fantasy. It must have been £40 or whatever it was at the time. Got it home, played probably about 5 or 6 hours. I think I remember getting to the end of the first disc, and I couldn't get into it. So I'm probably going to catch a bit of flack for saying that, but it just didn't gel well with me at all.
Each to their own, I suppose. I mean, I weren't really into RPGs myself, like.
Yeah. So anyway, the following week, I think it was, I took it back, and Fighting Force was the other game I had in my hand when I picked up Final Fantasy, and I managed to swap it back to them for Fighting Force. And when I got Fighting Force home, I was over the moon because it was more my style of game.
Yeah.
Didn't have to think, you just hit buttons. And it was a game that I really, really gelled well with and thoroughly enjoyed. And I mean, I'll see it now. It's a bit of a spoiler to what's going to come at the end, but I think as a 3D take on what was essentially 2D gaming style in a beat 'em up, did a really good job of it.
Yeah,
if I'm honest. But I mean, what was your thoughts there, Glenn? Just playing through it again after all these years.
Well, it was fun to play through again. I mean, you might notice that we use a cheat because I remember we played through at the time, and it gets to be quite tough. I mean, you start with one life, and you've got to build on your continues. You've got to grind a little bit to even get that. So it reminds us a little bit of some of the problems with Double Dragon 3 on the NES, as far as like that element goes, and that you need to get through a good portion of the game before you can guarantee getting further. It is a good, solid take on a 3D beat 'em up. I can't disagree with that. I mean, me personally, I'll always we probably always prefer our classic 2D beat 'em ups. This is something a lot more precise and more fluid about a 2D beat 'em up like Streets of Rage or Final Fight. But as far as 3D beat 'em ups go, there's not that many out there. I mean, the one of the most well-known one being Die Hard Arcade or Dynamite Decker, as it's also called in Japan. That's probably one of the most well-known that has like a big name attached to it. But it's a good solid game for its time, 1997. Like I say, we've just done a full playthrough. Now, I haven't personally played that game for about, did I say 15 years?
Well, I think it was probably 97, 98 when I had it.
Say 25 years. And I remembered a lot about it as I was playing it. I remembered quite a bit from what I remember playing in the day, which I thought was quite good. That it must have at least it imprinted on us that I could remember so much about it. I did find playing it through again just now recently to be a little bit of a slog towards the end. I mean, it is quite a long game. But again, we'll get into that in a bit more. But it was enjoyable. I mean, it wouldn't be as enjoyable in one player, but to play in a two-player game and that, and you do have 4 pretty diverse characters. It's better than some of the 3D beat 'em ups out there. Like one example being like Soul Fighter on the Dreamcast, single player with 3 different characters.
Let's circle back to what you just said there about it being a bit of a slog. Because I think we need to obviously talk about that. But before we do that, let's just get into a little bit of the history, etc. Because it's got a bit of a history behind it.
Some people will know now, but if you don't know, it's really worth knowing. I mean, I'll let Mark explain this part, but it is very good.
If you look this up, there's basically 2 versions of a similar story. The first one being that Core Design, who programmed and designed the game.
Tomb Raider, you might know as well.
Yeah, who were also responsible for the first few Tomb Raiders. They originally pitched the idea to Sega, and Sega knocked it back because at the time they said they had their own ideas.
They probably wouldn't want to compete with Dynamite Decker as well, would they?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the game they were pitching here was Streets of Rage 4. I mean, surely that's a no-brainer, right? But
that has been confirmed, hasn't it?
Yes, Sega turned around and said they had ideas their own for taking the Streets of Rage franchise forward, which is fair enough. But then, if you read the story that's over on the Fighting Force wiki on Fandom, apparently the game was agreed to be programmed along with Sega and programmed by by Core. Sega were planning to publish this exclusively for the Sega Saturn, but then when Core got grand ideas about releasing it on multi-formats, Sega pulled the Streets of Rage name, and then it led to Core finishing the game as an independent IP and having Eidos along for the publishing rights. So I think whichever one's true, probably the second one. I think in this case, it feels very much like what Streets of Rage 4 would have been back in like 1997. So two good stories there. The game released on the N64 as a full version.
64, it's got a couple of little changes here and there.
It is. It released in 1997 originally for the PlayStation and PC. Sorry, I think the PC version came 98. But it released 97 on the PSX, 98 or 99 maybe for the PC version, and then the N64 version is Fighting Force 64, released in 1999, published by Crave Entertainment this time. And like Glenn just said there is a couple of subtle differences. One, the graphics get a minor uptick.
As they should do, I should expect, with N64 smoother.
You lose all of the wobbly textures and stuff like that you get on the PlayStation. On top of that, I had a little 10-15 minute go on it today. I've never played it before, I don't think. And it does feel markedly faster and more fluent. It's like it's almost running at 60 frames per second, where the PlayStation 1's running at 30.
PS1 version, after playing it again more recently, does feel a bit soupy.
It feels
that's a word
dated.
I can use. Yeah. Just to interject with Mark here for a sec as well, where I still don't get that feel from even like the Streets of Rage 2, Streets of Rage 3.
They're very fluid games.
Very precise, sharp, crystal.
Yeah, it could hardly be coined as something sharp. This game, it's the exact opposite.
Pure ball.
Feels like you're walking through treacle a lot of the time. But we'll get to that later and whether it knocks the game down at all. But so I think the N64 version actually feels like it might play a little bit better.
Yeah, so it should.
I probably will go through the N64 version in full.
When you've got the old 64 added on the title there, as they were wanting to do back in the day, I always expected some improvements or changes. In the very least. So plus, it was soundtrack's a bit different as well, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, so on the PlayStation version, the soundtrack is it's kind of like dreary
ambience,
elevator
music, isn't it?
No, it's not even elevator music. That'd be pleasant. Or mostly pleasant. Where on the N64 version, because obviously they haven't got the CD audio or the Red Book audio like the PSX has, it tends to have like a more generic, dancey
But the irony being, it's better for it than what the CD could bring to the market at the time. Yeah,
it feels a little bit more like what a Streets of Rage soundtrack would have been, but nowhere near as good, obviously.
Heroes work, yeah.
Here's the PlayStation version. And here's the N64 version. Sounds a bit more like a drum and bass track. But on top of that, the only other change that I'm aware of is you get lives in the N64 version, where you only get one life on the PlayStation and PC version, and you don't have continues instantly. You've got to earn continues as you go through the game. So I started playing this a couple of days back just to warm myself up on it again and remind myself how it played, and I couldn't get past the first level. So I said to Glenn today when he came up, I says, we're putting invulnerability on because it's the only way we're going to get through the game.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good choice in the end, mate.
Definitely, yeah. At least we're saying all with it. It weren't that long.
In terms of history, I don't think there's anything really much more to say. It's, I think playing through it, seeing it, you can clearly feel the inspiration from the Streets of Rage franchise.
Yeah, I mean, the feels there. Obviously, the combat system's not exactly the same. As it's expected to be when you transition from what would have been a 2D beat 'em up to a 3D beat 'em up. But I think what we've got is quite solid. Again, comparing it against some of its contemporaries of the time, as far as a 3D combat system goes. I mean, you're now literally moving and fighting in obviously in a 3D environment, so you can hit people on all angles, just like you would.
It does quite a good job of it as well, though, doesn't it? Because like you said earlier when we were playing it, like the tracking is quite good. And when we speak of tracking, if you think of games like SmackDown and that on the PlayStation, that you can suddenly be hitting one person and then the tracking will change to another wrestler, and you'll not be hitting the guy you want to hit. Where on this, you are aiming, you're aiming yourself in the direction you want to attack, but it tends to work most of the time pretty well. And you end up hitting a bad guy, although in 2-player mode you end up hitting each other just as much.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's worth pointing out, and I'm just having a look here now. I'll just chuck this in there. In Japan, the game's called Metal Fist, which I think is absolutely cool. Like, that's a cool name. Should have called it Metal Fist. I mean, I think I'm going to try and just make my own game and call it Metal Fist, just because it sounds so cool. Like,
now, there was as we discussed just earlier there, the game was originally planned to be a Sega Saturn only release. Now, what happened was the Sega Saturn version, because obviously the Sega Saturn did so well, they decided to pull the plug on it. Mm-hmm. So there is out there a prototype, and apparently rumoured to be a complete version. But I did want to try and get some video of it for the podcast, but I haven't been able to lay my hands on it. If anyone is able to get it, please drop us a comment on YouTube so we can get in touch, because I'd like to have a playthrough myself. So if you've got a ROM there or an ISO image, give us a shout, because I'd love to have a try. So yeah, I'd appreciate that. But as I mentioned earlier as well, it was made by the same team that bought you the original few Tomb Raider games. So I think anticipation was quite high for release. It released to a couple of high marks. It got middling
to good reviews. I mean, at the time, I remember a couple of good reviews. I believe in Player Magazine at the time, possibly PlayStation Power as well. Could have been PlayStation Pro, because there were so many similar themed magazines and named magazines here in the UK. But I remember liking it. I mean, Mark, you got it, obviously. You got it. It wasn't a game I was going to buy. I mean, I was in me sort of transitional phase where I was moving from me 2D beat 'em ups into me 3D, into me car combat stuff like Twisted Metal. So I'd sort of semi-lost interest in beat 'em ups, and I had a sort of minor interest in fighting games at the time, although you still played more fighting games than I did at that time.
Yeah, I did.
I was just curious, I wasn't very good at them. But But when you got Fighting Force, I remember seeing you playing it, and I was excited at the time to give it a shot. Definitely remember at that time being really impressed by the playthrough we had. Again, I do remember feeling that it took long, but then I feel that way sometimes about, like, say, Final Fight or even Streets of Rage. When they start to stretch over an hour, you're like, right, I'm ready to move on now.
Yeah, we said we'll come back to this. So this is it. For me, like a typical beat 'em up game, right? So you can pick Final Fight. I'm not going to say any of the Streets. Well, maybe Streets of Rage 1 a little bit. Like the likes of Rival Turf, DD Crew, all, you name it, beat 'em up, bar the exception of a few. After half an hour or so of mashing the buttons,
usually half an hour,
I get bored.
The thing is, and all, I think, a lot of with just beat 'em ups in general, and Fighting Force is guilty of this, is that you've only got so many locations you can use. If you're going to use basically the same theme as The Warriors, the film The Warriors, obviously classic, you're going to run out of different environments.
You're going to have a subway
Double
station.
Dragon's done it, Renegade's done it, you're going to have your subway station, you're going to have
your
a
streets.
Park level, probably a streets level, probably a construction site at some point.
Yeah.
Definitely a level on a lift. If you have a beat 'em up game, you don't have a level on a lift, you're cancelled, so you expect that, and if you don't get it, you get the point where you're even more disappointed that you didn't get it, which I think is crazy. So whether you like this or not, Fighting Force is guilty of all those tropes, so that's a good and bad thing, remember, at the same time, if you haven't played the game.
And for me personally, I think it is a good thing, because what they've done is, I know it sounds probably stupid, but they've taken what was essentially a 2D format game, transitioned it into 3D, and done a good job of doing that, probably by not trying to change the formula. It's like it plays like a 2D beat 'em up would, but in 3D.
Yeah, to some degree. You've got a grab button now, which is obviously makes more sense than just walking into an enemy in a 3D game. So you can, you've got more control over that. You've got a few different basic combos, like any 2D fighting game. You've got once you've grappled an opponent, you've got a few moves you can do from that point on as well. The jumping attacks, but I find I don't even use regular
the
jump
jumping
attacks.
kick is hopeless.
Part of it's probably to do with playing with invincibility as well, so I found it useless. But I know in, like, say, even the first Street to Rage, jumping attacks can be very handy. Golden Axe obviously can be very handy.
It's good crowd control, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good crowd control without using a move that uses energy, which obviously Fighting Force actually has, as well as Final Fight and Street to Rage 2 onwards and so on. But the crowd control move is quite good, obviously, except for one exception. I'll play through our walkthrough as Ben Smasher, and his crowd control is he like whacks the ground with his fists and that, and the area it covers is massive, and you can knock each other down. And I didn't know if that was a glitch in the system at all or what, but I'm catching Mark out even when he's like halfway up the screen and that, pretty much out like
it's not a two-player friendly move, is it?
No, and you can hit each other quite a bit, which again isn't really a problem for our for our playthrough. But it would be if you were playing a multiplayer, even if the hits were like minor, because obviously you've got all the one guy and you're kicking the crap out of him. Then if you accidentally hit your mate, you just broke the floor like.
Now, as Glenn just mentioned, one of the characters there, I might as well give you a bit more information about the characters. So you've got 4 playable characters, as Glenn did say. You've got 2 all-rounders, which you can probably, if you want to compare to Streets of Rage, which some people will, you've basically your Axel and your Blaze. So you've got Hawk Manson, I think it is, Mace Daniels, so that's the typical boy and girl, okay. So Hawk's like got basically tougher, a little bit slower.
Yeah, your Axel and your Blaze.
Yeah, Mace is a little bit faster, but not as tough as Hawk. Then you've got Ben Smasher
Max,
Jackson.
Yeah, obviously Max.
Who's your Max?
Street 2 Max.
Yeah, and then you've got Alana McKendrick, which is basically your Skate, isn't it?
Yeah.
So she's like a young
yeah.
17-year-old girl. I've never even played as her, but I'm assuming you don't do any damage when you hit people.
They were good cast. They were good solid cast of characters. Actually, funny analogy there. I actually rarely play as Skate in Street Rage 2.
I don't ever play as Skate.
I just didn't. I'd always be a Max player myself. But quick mention of opponents and enemies. I'm not going too much into depth in the mooks themselves.
There's not much depth anyway.
They're quite generic. They are. Where in like the Street Rage games and Final Fight, they had very, very diverse personalities, which I thought was great. And here they've got different names and the different looking models, but don't seem to attack you in very different ways, apart from one enemy towards the end of the game where he has like an electric fist, so he can use like a single hit that knocks you down. But so they're a pain in the arse then. But apart from that, the enemies didn't seem to have any special sort of. They'll probably do have a couple of different moves even there, but nothing major. But the 4 bosses, I'll quickly go into them. Again, though, not that interesting, sadly. Good, but not great. In fact, the first time that you face the first boss, you're not really sure you're fighting the boss until like you realise he's taking a bit more to kill than anybody else. And he's a truck driver, and his name is Driver. He's called Driver, and I mean, you know, and he's pretty much what you look like. But I said to Mark today while we were playing, I mean, he's hardly like Damned or Barbon, you know, or even Antonio from Streets Rage 1, you know what I mean, who comes on looking like something out of a Police Academy film. But I'll move on from that. The second boss is Exo, and he's another big guy like Driver from the level 1, but again didn't really seem to have anything special about him. Looks like he has a pair of metal hands and that, but he has nothing really going from his different.
He's got like it looks like an exoskeleton suit on, isn't it?
But he doesn't have anything. I mean, you said yourself we picked up a strategy where you could kill the first couple of bosses, and you'll see something for the 4th boss as well, where you can use like a special kick using the punch and kick buttons and just tear them apart.
It's basically like a football punt.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't
just
do
sit there and just football punt them to death.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, if you're going to use the elbow on Double Dragon, fair enough, okay. But if you were like using, like if you played Street Rage 2 and you were trying to do that on some of the later bosses on some of the harder modes, you wouldn't have a chance. In fact, the 3rd boss was the first one who broke the mold a bit, you know, and that was Vulcan.
Yeah.
Mainly because he, I said to Mark, I says, I definitely remember there being a guy who could fly around a bit like Street's Jet, you know, and sure enough, there was this Vulcan guy, and he did break the mold because you could barely get anywhere near him because he had electric powers as well. Bit like, was it Dalton or out of Violent Storm? Was he called Dalton again, or? I can't remember the guy's name. He flew about. He had electric powers about me.
Oh yes,
aye. And this guy was a bit the same as that, so maybe they've taken some inspiration there. But it was interesting to know that you couldn't really get near him, but there's loads of like barrels in the area, so you have to chuck barrels. In fact, it reminds us more of like a Super Mario Brothers, Mario 64 boss.
Yeah.
You know, and that you chuck 4 or 5 barrels of his head and that killed him. So, but it was a nice little refreshing take on what we just fought. And then we fought Dr. Zeng, the final boss. Well, Mark, sorry. I mean, what you're seeing there is all Mark for that first half of his energy bar.
Yeah, he will be
so
nowhere
please
near
do watch
on the
that,
video
you know.
But
You tore them apart, mate.
Basically, the thing is, the first two bosses, right? You can literally kill them by just kicking them in the balls over and over again. Okay, with this.
And it's a noise he makes. The thing is, you would make that noise in real life. I think you would make that noise if you were getting repeatedly kicked in the bollocks.
You'd be squealing like a pig.
Well, it's like you're vomiting, wasn't he?
Aye.
But like, to me, it was a. I mean, again, we've got to use Street Rage games as analogies and Final Fight games. We'll talk about Mr. X for a second, though. Street Rage 2 version. I mean, he's generally quite easy in Street Rage 2 if you play Mr. X on an early mode, but if you're playing on, say, hard, maybe I could push, definitely hardest and definitely Mania, he will kick the shit out of you. And he has 2 moves. And although getting shot is more of an annoyance, when he charges and whacks you with the gun, you lose like half a bar, and there's no real way to sort of like cheese your way out with that. I mean, he will stitch you up good and proper.
Yeah.
And there's our boy here, he just totally tore this final boss apart.
I ran up to him, grabbed him, and just kept slapping him around the face until more than half his energy was gone.
Again, because I don't want this to turn into any sort of like rip on a game that we obviously clearly do like. I mean, there might be 1 or 2 exceptions in our podcasts, but at this moment in time, we've generally stuck with games that we've either had some nostalgia for or liked or still like. And I personally do like Fighting Force.
Yeah.
But I felt general presentation was good, but the presentation with the bosses, I was saying to Mark, like there's no sort of fanfare. I mean, you'll get like Damned will break out of the door in Final Fight 1. Barbon's, he strips off his bartender gear and he fights you.
Yeah.
And when you kill them, they'll either fall in slow motion or they'll have a little writhe around on the floor, and it's great.
There's nothing is there.
No, the bosses in Fighting Force, you don't even know you killed them. They just flash a couple of times and disappear. And sometimes you don't even realise you're fighting a boss. I mean, even Zeng just sort of like came running on, didn't he?
Yeah, there was no like dialogue or anything.
Yeah.
You'd expect like a bit of war,
just a bit of war banter, right?
How they're going to kill each other and stuff like that, and then like a big final fight. And he just came running over. I ran over to him and grabbed him and smacked the shit out of him
for full 30 seconds and took off his bar off, and it was like, you know. So I mean, Bit disappointing, yeah. I mean, again, you've contextual 25 years ago, you know, and it's still an early 3D beat 'em up.
Yeah.
1997, remember, and although there was one or two games that came out around about the same time, Perfect Weapon being one of them, which fared very poorly.
I can't remember that one.
That, if I remember that right, that uses static backgrounds like Resident Evil 1 and 2. So
right.
Now, and obviously, and I mean, not to digress too much, but we've got to mention the absolute nadir of 3D beat 'em ups, which is Crow, the City of Angels. Got to mention that quick because Fighting Force is definitely not in that league at all. You know, it is a fun game, it's enjoyable. Definitely started to wear out its welcome a bit after half an hour, like we've already agreed older 2D beat 'em ups do as well. But Crow, City of Angels, well, just try and play it for 5 minutes, basically. You know, how exactly, like, definitely how not to do a 3D beat 'em up, you know.
The speaking of that last boss, Dr. Zeng, I've got a note on here, and I took it off. I think it was off the again the fandom wiki page. Apparently, Dr. Zeng was inspired by the Heaven's Gate cult,
which is interesting. Obviously, read up on those if you want to. Hopefully, we'll not get.
I don't see the connection. Though.
Well, it depends on you reading up. I mean, he didn't kill himself at the end, definitely. So there's not that. Mind you, saying that, or maybe he did because he did walk right into your knee for 30 seconds. So
well, he sat there and let us.
Definitely isn't how Marshall Applewhite took himself out. But unless all I can think is his idea was that he wanted to go to take a spaceship to heaven, which is what Heaven's Gate was all about. They want to take all the followers to the stars. So by doing that, you were meant to off yourself.
By
sadly.
Drinking the Kool-Aid.
Well, it was different, but
yeah,
similar.
Different, but similar.
But the analogies there, like.
But yeah, I think there wasn't a lot of inspiration really for like the bosses or like the general enemies. Like I say, I think its biggest merit, Fighting Force's biggest merit, is the fact that it does a good job of transitioning from 2D to 3D.
Aye.
You know, the game,
there's a lot of destructibles and all that. There's a lot of environmental destructibility.
Yeah, so a lot of the environment.
I mean, satisfying.
Every level, there's like things where you can grab and rip them. You know, like a barrier, you'll be able to tear a piece off a barrier and turn it into a weapon.
Every time, mate, I'm kicking a car apart, it feels like, oh my car, you know, oh my car.
But yeah, so you smash all the cars. The tyres typically fall off, as they do in real life when you break a car. And you can pick them up and throw them at enemies, and you know they do quite a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So that actually, speaking of that third boss with the electric
Vulcan.
Yeah. So the only way to kill him, from what we figured out anyway, is that you've got to pick the barrels up in the background. Now. It's not instantly obvious, but you realise after about 5 seconds that suddenly there's about 50 more barrels in that area than there were previously.
Here's a conundrum for you, which I'll challenge you to try, just to wind you up, mate. I'm sorry, but I want you to try and get up to him, right, and use up all the barrels and see if you can still kill him. I wonder if they spawn more in.
Do.
You might be able to check it on a walkthrough, actually, mate. Sorry to be cruel.
If I can get hold of him, I'll just knee him in the balls repeatedly again.
I don't think. Well, no, he'll just electrocute your knees or his own balls, possibly in the process. But you know, I don't know. It was nasty. But the thing with
how much damage did one barrel do to him? Though?
About 25%.
At least, I think we killed him with
that
4
second
barrels.
one, I hit him with the second one. I think it looked like it did about 40% damage.
Aye.
Then you slung the last one at him, I think. So I was slung. We both slung a barrel each, and then he just flashed and disappeared.
Yep,
he didn't even fall over. I mean, this guy didn't even give us the courtesy of falling on the floor. And never mind twitching and doing a whole death throws, like you'd at least got off damned on Final Fight. You know, I mean, Christ, what
it was just a.
Or Sodom.
He was just snuffed out, wasn't he?
Yeah, just out of existence, which could be something to do with the Heaven's Cult, the Heaven's Gate cult. Maybe that's where it comes from.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. But I think there's not much more to say. But do you know what we need to do here? Go into some more recommended games that you could play. Well, if you want a solid 3D beat 'em up experience.
I'll tell you what it is, right? I tell you what, why don't we put a few games out there that we both know, 3D, only 3. Obviously, we've got to be strictly 3D, and give people a quick idea of if they like them or not. I mean, I'll give 3. Now, I've just mentioned Soul Fighter, right? As being a bad game. Now, it's not a great game. It's a Dreamcast exclusive. It suffers a little bit from Fighting Force's problem, but to some further degree, in that it's only one player, which doesn't help. One less character to choose from. But there's a playable game there. But if you do check out Soul Fighter, there's two very different game modes. And the games themselves aren't different. It's just the way the modes handle themselves. I mean, if you play, I believe it's called the adventure mode. You're expected to get through the game on one life, without, bear in mind, we've just been talking about Fighting Force, the PlayStation version, or about one life. So one life with no continues. I believe it's no saves as well, and this takes about 6 hours. I know this. A lot to ask for. Yeah, I know this because it also comes with an arcade mode, which is the exact same game, but you get to save your position. And fortunately, there's a cheat. There's an invincibility cheat in Soul Fighter.
You get to save your position in the arcade mode.
It could be the other way around. I could have the other way around because it's been a long time. But you can save the position in one mode and you can't in the other. So if you die, you can obviously start further back. But so it might be the arcade mode that you can't. But how the hell would you play a fighting, like a beat 'em up for about 5-6 hours straight? Because I have played through the whole game, like not in one sitting, but over several sittings, and it takes about that length of time. So although I won't really recommend it, I'll say if you're interested in this type of game, it's maybe not the very worst. Now a better game is its technical prequel. Bear in mind these two games are by a company called Funsoft, French maker. They've made quite a few other games like Burning Road and Explosive Racing as well.
Games.
Which are quite good Ridge Racer clones. But the sort of prequel to Soul Fight was called Legend. That also has a game called Legend on the Super Nintendo, but I'll not go into that. But the game Legend on the PlayStation 1 came out as a European-only exclusive, so that might interest some of the American listeners out there, if you do, just in case you want to collect these games. And I've told Marcus it's really good. It has elements of Soul Fighter in there. Again, it's an earlier game by 1 year, but it's just done better. It's got these cool infinite combos, which probably shouldn't work the way they do, but it just makes the game very satisfying. And personally, I felt a little bit more fun than Fighting Force to play, and you can complete it in under an hour as well. But again, it's a 3D fighter with 3 selectable characters to play, so it's got one over Soul Fighter there already. Obviously, we've got Dynamite Decker as well, Mark.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's the pinnacle.
Well, you've got Die Hard Arcade, obviously.
You mentioned one as well earlier when we were talking.
Yeah, Devil Fist.
Yeah.
So I mean, quickly, Dynamite Decker.
Yeah.
Does feel faster than Fighting Force, especially the PlayStation version.
It's an arcade-based game, though. I love them cutscenes, actually. I love the QTEs, the work in that game, right? They quite work.
It feels more in line with what Fighting Force 64 felt like, a little bit quicker and more fluent, you know.
But have you noticed as well, though, with Decker, that what you do is instead of having an environment and then fighting about 20 or 30 blokes, you tend to have a very small area, take on a handful of baddies, move to another area. I think that was another one of Fighting Force's problems in that, you know, I said this to you earlier as well, that you move to an area and it's like basically an arena area, so it'll block itself off basically.
Yeah.
While about 20 blokes will swarm you in groups of 3 or 4. So you're stuck in that area for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Where Decker, obviously when I say Decker I mean Die Hard Arcade. It allows, it has a better flow. The flow is better.
It is. It's quicker.
Because a smaller group of enemies and a more movement. And again, normally QTEs, we hate them normally, but for some reason, because they're not obtrusive, like too obtrusive, is that the right word I'm using? I think they don't spoil the game flow too much.
They don't. You just, I think it helps you with your routes, doesn't it? So if
you get a different route. It doesn't. They're never negative, really, are they?
If you achieve, you get like a better route than you would if you fail.
Don't they help your medals as well? Yeah,
something like that.
Overall achievements.
Don't forget and all. Obviously, Dynamite Cop. The sequel to that one.
Aye.
And then Asian Dynamite as well. I think it's Naomi hardware in the arcade. So they're all good beat 'em ups to try if you're into your 3D stuff.
A game I've always wanted to try but haven't, and a game by Core, is Ninja Legacy of Darkness, I believe it's called. Now it's a single player only, and you only have one character, but it looks quite cool. And I mean, some people obviously love that Asian theme anyway. So I mean, it's not exactly Ninja Gaiden. It's a 3D beat 'em up in the style of Fighting Force, but just maybe for trying a different aesthetic, like a different sort of environment and that. But also, again, like Fighting Force, it got like middling to good reviews. So although I've never played it, I'd say if it's in the 60s or 70s and you like that type of game, it's worth giving it a shot in it. It's not
absolutely.
That wouldn't make it a bad game, even if it wasn't a great game.
I mean, it's a just above average beat 'em up, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of what you expect. God Hand, on the other hand,
a well received game,
very well received game. Who was that? Who released that? Was it
Square? Who released it? Actually, let's have a look.
Square did the Bouncer, didn't it?
That's right.
That on
PS2.
PS2.
The Bouncer, man,
God Hand was a PS2 game. It came out around about 2002 or something like that.
The thing is, I've never
Glenn's just
played
looking
it.
it up.
I've never played God Hand, but it's Clover Studios and also by Capcom. So there you
Capcom.
go. But what was it? Yeah, it was in 2006.
2006
It's quite
is
late.
late,
It's
is
quite
that?
a late release for the machine when the PS3 would have been out as well.
It's a very, it feels like Devil May Cry, but a lot more beat 'em up. So like a lot more grounded beat 'em up. You haven't got guns shooting people and beating people up at the same time and juggling everything in the air. It's quite a in-depth combat system, and it's fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously as well.
I tell you what it is, since we're only half an hour into the podcast, right, and we don't want it to be too short, just let's spend a few minutes just talking about how we feel the difference between, say, a game like Fighting Force compared to, say, God of War or Devil May Cry, because there's still... God of War for me has like a massive amount of beat 'em up elements in it, but about 40% of the game is still puzzles and but the combat system, there's overlap there. Do you not feel that? Do you get that vibe somehow?
I do,
Or can you consider them two separate genres still?
I kind of do,
Aye.
yeah. If I'm honest, yeah. Bit strange. So you go back to 2D here. You've opened up a good can of worms here, actually.
I know I want to do actually
So
now.
you
Got
compare something like Golden Axe and Final Fight. For me, they're both beat 'em ups. Although
Yeah.
Golden Axe plays, it feels like it plays a hell of a lot different to Final Fight. Okay, but because you walk along in a 2D line, fighting multiple
And
people
there's
at
no
once,
puzzles generally. You're
no
just fighting
puzzles, anything
enemies,
like that. Fairly flat levels. I know Golden Axe has got some elevations and that, but they're both considered beat 'em ups, right? Full stop. But then you talk about like you say, this game, Fighting Force versus God of War.
Yeah.
For me, God of War's, it doesn't feel like a beat 'em up as such.
No, I know what you mean. I know.
It's for me the newer God of War, like this generation of God of War and last gen, feels more like a beat 'em up than the old ones because you're in closer to the action, third person, over the shoulder.
So you couldn't look at, say, a game like Fighting Force and say it's a God of War game, but without the puzzles out. I mean, I know again it's not the best comparison. There's other comparisons. I'm going to use a good one in a second, which I think you will like, because you like this game that I'm going to mention. You like that a lot. But I did want to say, because these are two extremes in my opinion.
Right.
Having a game like Fighting Force being a pure beat 'em up compared to, say, God of War or Devil May Cry, because obviously the mechanics are similar, you know. But a game where it's not just about fighting, but fighting is a big part of the game. But a game I think we can more comfortably use because obviously at the time of its release it was referred to as Goddess of War, Heavenly Sword. Because I know that was a game that was obviously heavily combat influenced, but with a small degree of...
It's more God of War, yeah.
Yeah, and with some degree of puzzle solving, but maybe blurring the lines a bit more between, say, a game like Fighting Force and God of War, so coming in the middle somewhere, maybe.
That game, I would love to cover that one.
Why don't we do that one
I
one
need
day,
a good
Connor?
6 hours to finish it again.
We've both played through that now, though. We've both played through
It's got
Heavenly
trophy
Sword.
support now and all. I would love to go back and get the trophies for that game. It was brilliant. What a fantastic game. If you've never played Heavenly Sword on the PlayStation 3,
You'd be picking up for 5 pence now, don't you, if you actually pick up a
I've
physical
got
copy.
a copy over here, actually. I can see it. It's there. Yeah, I've still got a copy. But that was a brilliant game. It plays very much like God of War.
I love the different systems of the colour system where the two different types you'd have to be a bit more wary. You couldn't just mash buttons like we've been doing today.
They did similar. Didn't they copy that for Golden Axe Beast Rider?
I believe they did.
Rightly?
And I didn't hate that game. I was going to mention that one.
It was
I didn't
alright.
hate that. I mean,
I didn't
again,
finish
that was,
it, like.
but that's more pure combat, isn't it? So that is more pure combat than puzzle solving. But I think Beast Rider's main problems were people going in expecting a game where you could play as all the characters. Pardon me, you could play multiplayer and that, and it wasn't that. But I've played a bit of the game, and I wouldn't call it a terrible game, as much as it's got terrible reviews. I think I think it's sort of set out to do what it meant to do within some reason. So I feel a bit gutted that Beast Rider actually ended up being considered a failure, because I don't think it actually is as a game.
I wish I'd put more time into it. I think it just came at a time when I had too many games, and I didn't put enough time in, and I give up on it pretty quick. But just to pull this little bit here to an end.
Yeah.
I think, I know it probably sounds stupid and backwards, but beat 'em ups to me are beat 'em ups like what we know, and Fighting Force 2, you know, and I think, you know, ever since the 2000s, like mid 2000s, what you would consider now a beat 'em up isn't what I would consider a beat 'em up anymore.
No.
I mean, everybody else considers it a beat 'em up. You know, for any publications, they'll consider it a beat 'em up. all of the review sites out there, they'll call like God of War beat 'em up and stuff.
Do you not think as
it
well?
It feels different,
They've blurred the lines from like the early 80s. So I mean, you go back to Kung Fu Master, that would be considered beat 'em up, and it's like I wouldn't put
that's
Kung
not
Fu
a beat 'em
Master.
up.
No, I wouldn't put Kung Fu Master in the same genre as Double Dragon or or Renegade. You just don't. They have too different of a feel. I mean, it's more than just being on a single plane as opposed to just being able to move up and down.
Yeah.
So although it's not exactly the same analogy as having like a God of War compared to Fighting Force, it's still that same sort of like we've got two games that you hit each other, you hit people in. You just go and hit people in.
Yeah.
But they're different enough, and they're both not puzzle games. I mean, there's no puzzle elements to either of those, so it's not like it's Fist 2 or a classic computer game Fist 2. So might know, or say like a Kung Fu Kid on the Master System or something. You're not going into that territory.
Well, here's a good one. Warriors of Fate. That's a beat 'em up by Capcom, the arcade game.
Well, I was going to use
Clear beat 'em up.
well, yeah.
But the one before Warriors of Fate, what was that again?
Well, Dynasty Wars.
Dynasty Wars
is
that's a single hit game.
It's closer to what King of Dragons was, but then I know you're saying you could say it's closer to Vigilante or it's closer to Kung Fu Master, because even though you're on planes, you're moving on planes, you're hitting enemies one time,
single
bosses
hit,
and that, and mid bosses. So that does make a lot of sense. But that's why there's always been some blurring in the genre, and it's just
it needs its own genre, hit them once genre, instead of beat them up or something like that.
yeah, could work.
It's just. Maybe because I am old school and I'm an old fart, I struggle to consider God of War, like the PS2 God of War, like a true beat 'em up as such. They're good games. I enjoy them. Nothing wrong with them at all. Probably we'll be covering them at some point, especially the new one. But yeah, it's not in the same meld as like the old style beat 'em ups.
Do you know what it is?
Which I include Fighting
I
Force.
I have a feeling that it's not even gameplay related, but just having like story in game and having cutscenes and having words, just having a little bit of dialogue with characters, whether it's spoken or it's just text, does change how you perceive the game a bit.
Yeah.
So we've just played Fighting Force this year, and Fighting Force had no in-game dialogue or true cutscenes at all. It was a little bit of
in-engine.
It had a couple of in-engine scenes in there, but mainly just transitions between levels, or even just like enemy helicopters coming in and jet skis and whatnot and everything else. But like having a game like God of War, or even like another beat 'em up similar, but having those cutscenes like Heavenly Sword. Like, see, I remember Heavenly Sword as being more of a beat 'em up.
Good cutscenes.
I don't remember much. I remember a few little puzzle elements in that game, but a lot of it was about its combat and there was dialogue between like mainly bosses. But that's what I think for me personally, what made that particular game feel closer to a God of War than to like a Dynamite Decker or a Soul Fighter or Fighting Force.
I think I would consider them just an action game.
Which is what they generalise as, isn't it?
Yeah,
but how many games can you put in that genre? It's just like every game.
I mentioned it a few weeks ago on the podcast, that Marlowe Briggs and the Mask of Death, which is basically a God of War clone.
Said I.
It's an action game. It's a 3D action game, third person. That's the only way to really label them, because there are. I mean, I suppose in that sense. Well, no, I was going to say you could say like maybe Gears of War and that, but that's a cover shooter.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's.
I think when guns are not involved,
it makes it hard to generalise.
I think we can usually just separate them out if you're not a gun-based game. See, this is why eventually we'll probably mention Fighting Force 2 one day.
Well, we'll mention Fighting Force 2 at the end.
Yeah, we probably should. But I will do one quick shout out before we move on, and that'll be if you do love God of War and you've played all the God of Wars, you definitely need to check out Dante's Inferno.
Oh,
it's a complete rip-off. It's probably not as good as God of War 2 and maybe not 3, but it's great. And it should be, and it's cheap. You'll be able to pick it up for 10 pence now. So grab a copy, please.
I think you can get it
download
on EA, the EA subscription, whatever it's called. I can't remember.
They'll charge about £10 though, still, won't they?
No, it's free to play.
If
you either EA subscription thing, I think that's £20 a month, or it's included with Xbox Game Pass.
It's definitely worth checking out that one. Oh, that was a great game. I loved that. I've completed that and enjoyed every minute, so no regrets. From the guys who made Dead Space, by the way.
Proper freak years out and whatnot.
Yeah, the baby's not. Oh.
Aye, whoa.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so just back to Fighting Force. I mean, I would say largely they've done a really good job on the system itself and how it plays and everything.
Yeah.
Like I say,
Mechanically, it's good because we've just talked about
Yeah.
like tracking and that, which can be a massive problem with 3D beating ups and fighting games, obviously, where you've got multiple characters, like a Power Stone type environment or wrestling games.
but I think it feels like an early PlayStation 1 game, even though it's not. It's like kind of mid-gen, like mid-gen, yeah. More in the fact that it's like it feels uninspired. Like your enemy names are just boring. The enemies themselves are pretty bland.
Yeah, and I think it's probably deliberate. I mean, they want the bosses to stand out a bit more, and they didn't put that much into the boss's eyes. So I think at least by making the enemies very generic. I mean, you've just got like this security guards and guys in suits for the first level, wasn't it? It was just armed guys in suits.
It sums it up with the names themselves. There's a guy called Dude.
He's called Dude. Maybe he's just cool enough to
killed a
call
dude.
himself Dude, But,
They could have at least called him Cool Dude.
Well, the main character Smasher, he's got this guy called Basher.
And Thrasher. Gnasher.
No, there's no Thrasher. That's probably trademarked to the American version of Final Fight, isn't it, mate?
The Metal Fist will have Thrasher in it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's what they should have called that guy with the electric fist. They've missed a trick there, haven't they? The fist at the end of the final enemies that were kicking the shit out of us.
You should have called him Electro Fist or something.
That's probably should be a Marvel character.
Oh, Electro Eye. But yeah, Glenn mentioned Fighting Force 2 as well. For anyone who doesn't know, Fighting Force 2 did release, I think it was 1999.
Well, it got released in the same way that things you don't like inside you get released, but like
like dropping your kids off at the pool kind of released.
Yeah.
But it came out in 1999 for the PlayStation and Dreamcast, probably the PC as well.
I've heard by the Dreamcast version is even worse because it doesn't really improve on the quality of the graphics of the PS1.
Well, I've played the Dreamcast version, but I don't think I've played the PlayStation version. And what I can say is, instead of going back into genres again here, instead of a beat 'em up, what they've essentially went for is like an action stealth game. So you kind of...
So one of the worst genres out there, they want to turn into a genre itself. Like people hate stealth segments in these games, like Siphon Filter and Metal Gear,
Well, Metal Gear is stealth and that's great, it works. Splinter Cell, the early ones, their stealth worked. But this is like, this game fails completely in everything it was trying to do. I mean, it didn't play anywhere good with a beat 'em up. It wasn't very good at its stealth elements. It felt like the mechanics were broken. The graphics were pretty laughable for the Dreamcast because we all know the Dreamcast was amazing.
It's a single player sequel to a game that had 2 player in it, and it's got one character.
It's the worst kind of sequel. They've changed the format completely to a format that nobody really wants, especially if you're going to do it wrong.
Even Double Dragon 3 had 3 player, you know what I mean?
Oh, Jesus, don't ever talk about that.
We're going to do a podcast one day, Mark. We've got
we'll do a good cop, bad cop, and I'll be
great,
bad cop. And I'll cut your microphone off.
I will praise some parts of the arcade game.
I'll just make sure to turn your volume down when it happens.
Well, what we say though, it is as a sequel that seemed to fail on every level that it shouldn't have.
It did, mate.
Some sequels aren't as good as the original game because they change some stuff. I don't personally have a problem with the developer and publisher trying to change things for the better and failing in it because you can see they're trying. But this looks like it took all the steps back and like, why would you... Like, it could have been a different game. It could have been a different game altogether, and they've just rebranded it as Fighting Force 2 at the last minute.
That's
to
what
try
it
and
felt
tie
like.
it in with a game that was reasonably popular.
That's what it felt like, but I haven't seen any evidence out there to suggest that.
Yeah, there's been nothing mentioned.
But that's what
it's
it
just
definitely
assumption
feels
on my
like.
part.
But I remember trying to put quite a bit of time into it. I bought it, paid for it. I mean, admittedly, when I got my Dreamcast, it was when it was like 50 quid or something in game when they were dying out. Sega had declared they were no longer making games for it.
It's one of the best consoles out there.
I picked it up. It was £99 I picked it up for. And I remember getting it home. I was so excited. And when I got it home, I was blown away by how good it was. I didn't have a PlayStation 2 yet. And mate, what a console. I'd love to own one again now, actually.
Well, as I said, they're so versatile now, though, with all these, all the apps and that and the games you can
What ruined the Dreamcast for me was the fact that I got given a ton of CDs for it, and obviously it had no copy protection. Aye. So instead of playing games, I just spent my life trying games, basically, which is terrible when you do that. But Fighting Force 2 was one of the games I actually bought and paid for, and I tried. I really tried with it.
It feels like a spin-off of Fighting Force 1. Like, it should be a spin-off and not a true sequel.
Yeah.
Like, the same way that Death by Degrees is a Tekken spin-off and that. you know, and you've got your Mortal Kombat spin-offs like Shaolin Monks and Shaolin Monks is generally well received, but you know, like what was the one with Jackson that we talked about, Special Forces, you know. So you know, and that's where I got the vibe with Fighting Force 2, you know. So
the only way it felt connected was because you had Hawk Manson in it. Is it Manson or Mason? I've got Manson written down. I'm going to go with Manson.
I think I've seen both spellings now.
Charles Manson.
That's the link, maybe, but they got the family wrong, you know.
The Heaven's Gate link.
Yeah.
Oh shit! They fucked that one up. But no, the only link I could see was, other than the words Fighting Force in the title, and Hawk Manson in the game. And yeah, for me it was an absolute failure. I should have looked up the review scores for it before we did the podcast, because I bet you it's like 1 or 2 out of 10 on Metacritic or something.
It's got some poor reviews. I have seen some very, very dire reviews of Fighting Force 2, like both versions. You know, which is it's a shame. At the end of the day, it's still a product, and that, you know, and you hate to see. But obviously, that killed any chances of a Fighting Force 3, which was mentioned at some point. I've heard the name.
It was mentioned, yeah,
about, but it's never happened
for original Xbox and PS2.
It would have been cool if it says, "Right, let's scratch what we did the second one, turn it back into a massive 4-player multiplayer brawl with 10 different characters you can choose from, and some great variety." And Dr. Zeng's back, but now he's like bigger and badder and doesn't get kneed in the balls for 30 seconds and all this crap, you know.
I mean, it
could have worked.
In about 20 minutes time, you'll be seeing the credits roll on the PlayStation game on this video, and at the end it comes up with "the end?" ? So they clearly had plans to bring Dr. Zeng back.
Yeah. Well, is he not in the second one?
I was just about to say, I'm not sure if he's into or not.
I would have thought he is,
but I know you're fighting some weird like lab monkey things.
Well, that's it. The blokes look more. Every part of Fighting Force 2 I've seen looks like they're all fighting in laboratories, in factories, and that. It doesn't. There doesn't seem to be any sort of outside areas, and it looks like you're just moving about and then taking on sort of the type of guys you fight in level 4.
The cryo tube enemies.
Yeah, you know, like
they're called cryo.
Aye. Mind you, we've just got to mention this one game and all before we're gone, and that is before we move on, another good. I can't believe we missed this one, Marcus. We missed. What is the House of the Dead beat 'em up called?
Zombie Revenge.
Zombie Revenge.
Yeah, Dreamcast.
Just definitely put that out there. The fact that that's a great game, and can't believe we missed that one. But probably the pinnacle of the Sega 3D beat 'em up games.
I'll be honest, mate. I prefer Dynamite Cop to Zombie Revenge. Hard to say why. I think it just plays better. Dynamite Cop,
I played a bit of it. I played a bit and I liked it. Like
I like Dynamite Cop's quirkiness and all, where you pick up like umbrellas and kill people with them and stuff like that.
Yeah, you can.
And you've got loads of different daft weapons in there.
The enemies.
Asian Dynamite goes even further. You pick up outfits, and for every different outfit you wear, you've got a different set of moves.
But don't they remake the bosses as well? Like, so you'll have an original boss that might be an octopus or something, and now got something that's turned into like.
So when Glenn says remake, sorry to bring back this, but yeah, Die Hard Arcade. Asian Dynamite. It's either Die Hard Arcade or Dynamite Cop. Asian Dynamite is a remake of one of those games.
It's a remake of the first one, I believe.
But they've proper screwed with it to the point where it's almost like Space Invaders 95 to the original Space Invaders, where everything's like spoofed. Basically,
it's uncanny, isn't it? It's deliberate uncanny valley, like almost like like a satire of the first one.
Yeah, exactly. It's a satirical version of the first game,
and the first one wasn't too serious, was it?
Nah,
so.
But it plays really good, really good. If you're into emulation, or you like spending lots amount of money on the arcade systems, you could pick it up for. I'm sure it's a Naomi system. It's out for. Yeah, it would make sense.
It's China money, though, I think.
Yeah, I believe it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One other honourable mention from me, actually, Tekken 3, the
Tekken Force.
beat 'em up section, Tekken Force, that was actually quite good.
Well, the big boss is Dr. Boskonovich, I think, and he's the final character you fight a different main character at the end of all 3 levels.
I don't think I finished it,
but you unlock him. I think that's how you unlock him in that game. So you have to play a Tekken Force to beat him.
Oh, maybe I did do it then.
And I remember all the main. You fight like these mooks, and I think they all look the same, but they're different colours, and they're just named after different birds or something. No, they've got the named after like the bird and eagle or something and hawk or whatnot.
You pick
they get tougher and tougher.
You pick up a chicken and it's chicken.
I mean, it's simple. It's simple. But it's a tacked on mode on a main game. So it's like to have a bit of fun with that and be enjoying it. Even if you don't play it more than twice, you're like, well, that was a kind of little bit of nice extra content for your £40, you know.
They chucked in bowling and everything in the third one. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Really, really complete package that, wasn't it?
Unbelievable.
But I mean, We're at 52 minutes, mate. We've got about an hour and 10 minutes of gameplay, so I might just leave the video running for YouTube so that it's a long play, basically.
Yeah.
We did cheat, like Glenn said, but we needed to. So, sorry.
We wanted you to see the full
Sorry, we're
game,
not sorry.
basically, so, you know.
Yeah,
You have to see
exactly.
that ball kicking for 30 seconds, so got to watch. Just wind at the end that if you don't like the rest of it.
Yeah, go to the last 5 minutes and you'll see us take down Dr. Zeng with minimal effort.
Yeah.
But
We didn't do that back in the day, no? I don't remember us getting to do
No,
that.
I-
You just walked straight into your fucking knee.
I couldn't remember that you could. Well, I didn't know you could do that. I read it today when I was on the
It
fan
might be
wiki.
something she's got. It must be something she's a bit broken, like, so that's how.
No,
You
no,
might
he
not play
can
with
he
her.
can do it as well.
Can you?
Hawk can.
All right.
Hawk and Mace.
My bloke just stood there a lot.
So yeah, you can just literally toe punt people to death. But it's her grab move and his, I think, as well. If you can kind of like hit 3 times, 4 for her, and then if you change the move you're doing or you stop, but you keep holding, you can keep doing it indefinitely. As long as you know, like Streets of Rage, where you
Yeah.
pin somebody against the corner,
Yeah.
punch them twice, back off,
Yeah.
go back into them again.
I was thinking of Final Fight as well. We grab
Final Fight, yeah.
2 knees,
Yeah.
yeah.
So again, it falls into all the original beat 'em up tropes.
Yeah.
It has its own, which is how it plays so well. But I think we should start wrapping it up, mate, with some reviews.
Quick review, yeah. Quick review of it.
I was going to say let's recommend some games, but we've already
We'll recommend
mentioned
as many
like
as we
4 or
can.
5. Yeah.
Some good names there.
The for me, like I say, it does what it's set out to do very well. It could have done with a little bit more spit and polish in terms of like the graphics, definitely the music, the sound's passable. You know, the punch sounds and everything
Yeah.
sound
The sound effects
decent.
themselves. The music's terrible.
Yeah, the music is
I mean,
just
Pit Fighter's music's
forgettable.
better.
You'd be better off. It's a shame it's not one of them games like Ridge Racer where you can boot the whole game
Import
up
your
and
own
go and
CD.
put your own music in.
Import your music straight in.
Yeah,
shit.
I mean, I'm sure you could now. You could probably just rip your own tracks and especially if you
Street
emulate.
soundtrack.
Aye,
Get
that would suit it perfectly. But it does play well. I think the N64 version may play better, but I'm not going to claim that fully until I've played through it. But I recommend you give it a shot, especially if you're into your old school beat 'em ups. You know, anything like Streets of Rage and things like that. Plus, there's that connection to Streets of Rage there. If you're a big Streets of Rage fan, you should definitely play it because it could have been Streets of Rage 4. In fact, speaking of Glenn, do you remember Streets of Rage 4?
Dreamcast.
Aye, yes.
I thought you might have
I
mentioned
remember
that,
the video.
I mean, bear in mind, what I heard about this was, it's on YouTube, so you can see this, is that this was created directly by Yuzo Koshiro himself.
Yeah.
As in, I mean, I didn't realise at that time that he even had development skills, but it sounds like it was him. It says he developed it, so either he told someone to make it, or he did it himself, you know. But it is a demo, and it clearly shows Axel fighting a lot of it's Doug's,
Yeah.
isn't it? No, not Doug's, man. That's fine, right? It's Donovan's.
Donovan's,
fighting
yeah.
a group with Donovan's, and that this would have been a Dreamcast Street Rage 4, so it would have been Japanese made, and also it might have felt a bit more like Dynamite Decker or as I say, the House of the Dead.
Yeah.
beat 'em up, you know what I mean? So, but again, there was nothing seemed to come of that, and I don't think there's any playable material either. I think the only bit you'll get of this game, this
Some
Yuzo
footage.
Koshiro-led project, would be the footage that you see on YouTube. But it was something that was planned and just didn't get too far.
So, I mean, look, let's just spread this out a little bit here, right? We'll get to the hour mark.
Yeah.
4 minutes time. So, 1996, 5, something like that, they would have probably started developing Fighting Force, you'd think, in agreement with Sega at that time.
Definitely by early '96, I would say.
So
Streets 4 would have been up by maybe up to 2 years by that point, like 18 months here. Streets 3, I mean, sorry.
yeah, so if this Street 4 was indeed already on Sega's mind, the timing surely wouldn't work out. So I'm just trying to
do you know what it is?
dispel the
Without-
first
Without
story.
getting too deep into what could or couldn't have been, I personally am happy that it's not Street Rage 4.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm not going to say it's a bad game, but it's a UK made game as well. And again, that's definitely nothing against UK developers, but it does. Yeah, obviously with the Sega name and the Sega assets, I'm sure some of the visuals would have changed a bit. You would have probably had more closer characters. Obviously, Hawk would have no doubt been Axel.
Yeah.
Ben might have been Max and so on, and but I mean, yeah, if it had played like the game that it plays like. It still plays. It is. I agree with Mark saying it's got some good feel that's close to a 2D beat 'em up, but it still does play differently enough that to me it's not a Streets of Rage game. So I'm quite happy that Fighting Force ended up being a standalone game. I mean, obviously we have a full Streets of Rage 4 now. We've got the fantastic Streets of Rage remake out there as well, which I believe personally surpasses Streets 4, and I might get shot for this. But you know, you've got some great classic 2D Streets of Rage sequels and remakes out there. Without this needing to be the Streets of Rage 4 that some people thought it might be.
Yeah.
But as Mark always says, because of its amazing history and this interesting what could have been behind the making of Fighting Force, it's just worth giving it a chance anyway. Like I says, I don't personally think it's a great game. I think it's a good game, a fairly solid game anyway. But and definitely not one of the worst of its kind for the time period. But I'm quite happy that we just had the trilogy as it was. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. You know.
No, I agree, mate. I agree fully. But yeah. So for me, I mean, like I say, it's a good package. I'm gonna stick it with a 7.5, mate. I think that's a fair score for this game. I think it's a good score for this game.
Well,
maybe slightly generous.
I think so personally. I mean, I did like it when I played it originally back in 1997 or 8 or possibly 99. And I didn't not enjoy what I've just played there now, but I mean, I definitely was getting like burnout after about 20 minutes to half an hour. And obviously
that's because you played about half an hour before we started.
Yeah, which I did. But I mean, I felt myself using the same few moves, and I'll try and avoid blaming the game too much for this because the game did have an invincibility cheat on. But at the end of the day, you're going to use the moves that seem to work the best and kill the enemies the quickest, and I think I did. And it says I was starting, my enjoyment was starting to wane a bit towards the end.
That's beat 'em ups in general, though, mate. I mean,
yeah, but I just, you've got, if you look at say just Street Rage 2, the variety of different stuff you can do.
I don't
within
know.
Your move
Street
set,
Rage 2, if I'm playing as Axel, for example, I'll just punch, and then do grand upper, and then that does the most damage.
No, well, I'm gonna be a little bit less lenient than Mark's time. I'm gonna give Fighting Force a 6.5. Which is, it's more mediocre.
Shitting all over my games, how dare you?
I've shit all over his games, 6.5. It's not a terrible review. It's a game I'm not in a hurry to go back to, but I'm pleased to have played it and enjoyed it in the time it is. It's just, it's definitely not the worst of its genre at the time, but it's also not the best in my opinion. But a good, solid game overall if you like beat 'em ups in general, or you want to know about the history of the Street play, what could have been a further installment in the Street Rage series, I'd definitely just give it a shot anyway. You know, possibly in fact give the N64 version a whirl instead, because although I haven't played that one myself,
definitely
Mark,
plays a little bit faster.
It is a bit better and could be possibly. It said the music and all. I mean, although music does play such a big part in the game, when we've had those amazing soundtracks from the three Streets 3, I know Streets 3 doesn't have the best soundtrack of many, but I do like quite a few of the tunes on there still. They do get you into the vibe of the game, but 2's the best obviously. And Fighting Force absolutely does not have that at all. You might as well be fighting in silence.
All I'll say about the N64 version, take what I've said with a pinch of salt, because it's only based on early impressions. So I've only played about 20 minutes of the N64 version.
Well, I've looked into it a little bit in the past. In the past, I mean over a decade ago, and I don't remember ever reading in reviews that it was much better or much different than the original game. It was getting similar reviews, like 5s and 6s.
Yeah.
In American magazines, I remember reading in EGM, which is an American magazine for those not American. And I remember them. I think if I remember right, they gave it quite a lower review. Probably because the game came out at least a year after the original, and I don't think there was much in the way of extra material. You know, like at that point, you start to want to expect like an extra level, or maybe extra characters, or just modes, just something to make it. Especially when you've got the 64 prefix.
They've definitely balanced it better by giving you lives instead of just relying on a continue. When the continue actually takes you back to the checkpoint, which is at the start of the bit you're doing, like the start of the stage, basically.
Yeah.
So it was nice of them to chuck in an extra couple of lives there, so you can continue fighting from where you die, basically. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, my lowest review personally, I don't like to shit on any game, you know, and I'd like to think every game that we do here, maybe apart from one or two, which we'll obviously get to in the future, but generally speaking, you know, our reviews don't differ too much because the games that were either loved or at least liked, you know, or have some fond memories of. And so for me, Fighting Force is one of those games where I didn't love it, I didn't specifically like it, but I have some fond memories of. So And
No,
I'll leave my review there.
I think that's fair enough, mate. I do. But so yeah, I think we'll wrap that up, and bud.
Champion.
We're not far off from the game time that we spent playing. So yeah, hopefully right now we'll be killing Dr. Zeng with some brutal
Knees to the
toe
groin.
punch
Yes,
to the knees to the groin. Yeah.
Cool, man.
But yeah, look, thank you for sticking with us and listening to the full podcast. As always, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel. If you listen to this on Spotify or any other podcast, please, rate us, give us a bit of a review there, because apparently it really does help with the algorithms. Also, please share any links we send out, try to get the channel out to other people. That's us for now. You guys have a great rest of your day, weekend, whatever it is, and we'll catch you next time. Bye
Thank
for
you
now.
very much. Take care.
Bye now.